Good day, everybody. This is John Scarborough, working at the sawmill again today. Trying to get some different logs cut up. Today we're working on 9-foot logs. We've actually established with a lot of our other stacks, looking over here, we actually prefer to use 5-foot wide stacks. They just seem to be where we can stack lumber quite a bit higher, and they're a lot more stable. So I wanted to talk today a little bit about setting a stack up. Like, what do we do how do you get a stack completely set up and really well off? How do you make sure that the foundation is good? Because we've done several stacks in the past that were more for temporary farm use. So, we knew good and well that the lumber wouldn't be there for just a long time. It would, it'd be there long enough to dry, and that'd be about it. So it just needed to be there for a year. If it was an inch, it's a year per inch. So it just needed to be there for a certain amount of time, just long enough to dry, and then we knew we were going to move it and get it out of there. And then some of it, we knew that there was a chance we may even sell to somebody with a kiln, So it just needed to be flat and solid, but it didn't have to be there for a while. Today we're going to talk about more long-term stack. So a stack that is going to be there through the entire drying process. And this is actually, it's not just farm lumber, it's much better lumber that you want to ensure you want it to be really, really good lumber. And it may need to be here even after it's dry. We want to be able to leave it stored here. Also, if we pull from this stack, we may want to replenish in this same stack and not have to rebuild this stack. So we're going to put a little bit more effort into this today. One thing that I did here today, this is something I've actually come to like while leveling these stacks off, is so I went and got bricks, and y'all have seen that I didn't do that on everything that I've done, but I went and got bricks on this because these bricks are going to last. They're going to be here for quite some time, and I mean, honestly, short of cracking, they're not going to be a problem. So they get all of the lumber up off the ground. And that brick is 4 inches thick, okay? So then the next thing we did was we took some smaller logs that we got here. These are some logs that we got a bunch of those. Somebody had cut them down off their property, and we got a whole bunch of them. And they're not really worth cutting up into lumber. So, well, they are for some people, but right now we have a huge abundance of lumber. We had a big storm come through our place, so we actually had a lot more lumber, really good big logs that very few knots. So we're not going to spend our time cutting up this lumber when we've got good lumber on the farm. So what we're going to do is I'm using some of them, not all of them, but I'm using some of them like this, putting them up off the blocks and using them as a nice straight firm foundation. And the nice thing about doing that, that's 5 1/4 inches thick right there, that log is by itself. So the nice thing about that is that isn't going to move out of straight. It is thick enough that it's going to stay straight no matter what. So even I would even be willing to say that we could probably not even worry about leveling anything off or flattening it out, and our lumber would probably be pretty decent. Now, I wouldn't do that. I would suggest still getting it flat, just because you want a good solid foundation. But the point is it's a nice comfort to know that when you've got that kind of thickness, it really helps you out. Then up above that, they're about 3 1/2 inches, I think. And all we did here was just basically get them to 3 1/2 inches right there. And then we quartered them. We just quartered it up and got it thick enough. So I wanted to say this real quick. It's perfectly fine to use thinner pieces in here, but I really like using these nice big wide pieces at the very ends and then in my middle. I mean, really, if you just had pieces this big, a 3 1/2 by 3 1/2 or a 4 by 4 would be just fine, I think. But we got those set in there, and you always want to make sure that your stickers, everything that you're stacking on, you don't want it to be any farther away than 2 foot. You want to give it about 2 foot, and that's it. So even with a 9-foot stack, we want to have our 5 stickers, our 5 rows. So these right here, these logs that are laying across this way, this is where the stickers will lay on top all the way up. So I want to talk a little bit about how we're going to do this, what the plan is, and I'm going to actually set the camera to the side and let y'all kind of watch what we're going to do. But I've decided that my favorite way to do this is to, a lot of people will level their blocks off. So they'll put their blocks on the ground, get them all flat, and then check it for flat and level, and they're getting their block perfectly level. I don't actually prefer to do it that way. I do it more like, a lot of times you'll see people build a pier and beam house, which isn't as popular today as it used to be, but a lot of times you'll see when they build a pier and beam house, they'll set a solid foundation. They don't worry about level, they don't worry about anything. They just get a solid foundation, and then they come up from there and level it off. So that's kind of what we've done here, is we've just made it flat. We've created our blocks, we've made sure they're nice and stable and flat, and they don't move at all, okay? So that's what we did, and then we laid our logs on there, okay? From there, we can take our level and check it. We actually checked them, and they're all headed downhill just a little bit as far as the level goes. But they're all flat. So if you were just going to create a short stack, kind of like this one over here, if I can get it to focus, if that's all you were going to do, it wouldn't actually need to be level. All it would need to be is flat, okay? You just want it to be flat and or anything like that. But since we know that we want to be able to go up high, I want to be able to go, I don't want to have any limits on how high I can go. I want to get it close to level. That way I don't start to lean as I get higher up. One advantage to not getting them perfectly level is if for some reason any moisture or water or anything like that built up in there, it would at least have a slope to slope off of there. I don't think that's that much to be concerned about, but that is something I've heard people talk about. Personally, I like to just get them fairly close to level if I'm going to get them all the way up, because I cover all of it up anyway, especially since this is all exposed. I mean, that's the south, so this is all exposed to the south, okay? But so the nice thing is now we've got a firm foundation through those blocks, and then we've got a very solid, flat surface, so it's kind of like building a pier and beam house. So now this is going to be like my beams running across here. So now I can, that's solid enough that I can just cut shims. Okay, I could cut them on the sawmill. I'm probably going to go in here and cut them on the table saw and cut shims and shim everything up level. Okay, leave my bricks alone. That can get really tedious trying to get those bricks all level like that. But if you just create a firm foundation with those bricks and then go ahead and start to just level off your logs, man, that can create something awesome. So if y'all want to watch that, then I'm gonna keep that going in the video, and y'all can kind of watch what we're doing and kind of what how it works out, what you can do if you face that. So anyway, guys, watch on. Alright guys, so all I did was I tucked this back one under. It was about 1/4 inch. And then I could tell that the front was, you know, because the block is not quite perfectly flat. So we went and just shimmed a little bit more off of this with the table saw and then got that to fit in there. Once you get this set tight with this back one, then you just want to take this one and shove it in right until it stops, just to the point where it's snug. So now that's good and flat. Now we'll create level with this using this log. We created a firm foundation with this, and then we created just a flat plane with this one right here, good firm flat plane, and now we're going to create level with this very top one. Alright guys, so now we have created a firm foundation. The whole thing is solid, okay? It's not moving anywhere. So the next step is going to be to come along with these shims. We're going to get them cut just right and come through and shim all of these other places all along here. We don't want to move it. We want to shim that just tightly and snugly goes under it. Once that's done, then we can move forward from there. So guys, as y'all can tell, I've got an awful lot of idiot water, as we call it here in the South. Got a lot of sweat going on here. It's very, very hot, and it's a lot of work having to carry this camera around and get everything just right. I don't have my camera crew with me. But anyway, so if y'all appreciate this and all the work I'm putting into this, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. And I really appreciate anybody that has watched this far. All right, guys, so this is the next part. Now that we've got a nice firm foundation and we know that we're pretty close to level this way. So along those logs right there, we're pretty close to level. All right, so the last part is to check all of your boards running this way. So I've checked all of them and they all seem to be the same, which confirms that we don't seem to have a twist. All right, so if they were all, you want to lay that level on each one of these boards, and if they were all different, then it's possible that it's got a twist in there. And that's one thing that you really want to look for. That's probably more important than being flat, than being level, is to not have a twist. You want it to be flat, okay? But I checked all of these and they all seem to be the same. So now the next stage to this is to come through and actually level this off. So I'm going to show you here. I can get up close with this camera, okay? So you can see the bubble. We are just a little bit off, okay? So then I picked this up. I'll see if I can pick that up until it's level. Make sure y'all can see good. Okay, and then that is close to level. So you can see the gap underneath there. Okay, so you want to do that all the way across and check for level. All right, so that's what we're going to do. And as we bring it up to level, then we're actually going to measure that gap the same as we did on the rest of these. We're going to go back to the table saw and we're going to shim pieces. We're going to cut pieces that will fit under there just right. Okay, so now from here on out, you want to try to get pieces that are, you know, close to the same thickness as this, because we're getting closer to the top. We don't really want any of this to rock. We know we got this good and solid, okay? But now that we're getting closer to the top, this could rock just a little bit. So we don't want to do that. So we want to go in there and actually cut pieces, full-size pieces, that are the same size as this. Because we can tell when we look at this, that's another thing. So these are all sitting flat on this log. See, there's no real wobble to that one. That one may have just a touch, okay? But if we back up here, move my safety glasses, you can tell there's no wobble, okay? So that means that we're sitting flat, so our cut will be pretty close to the same. Now, it may get off just a little bit because we're actually going to be elevating it out of level, back into level, which would mean that the angle would change just a little. So, first thing we're going to do is raise it all the way up, okay? So you know that we're raising it up this way, so your tallest point will be right here at this very edge. So we'll measure that, cut it, and then gently put it in there and see if it does right. If it doesn't do right, if it has a gap or anything like that, then we'll adjust from there, okay? Alright guys, just wanted to show you all this real quick. So what I did was I measured this with my level on it, and it seemed like it was pretty close to a 1/2 inch. So I went ahead and cut me 1/2 inch shim right there, and I put it under the very outside edge there. And as you can see, it's pretty close. It's not actually completely perfect. I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but it is very close. It's within the bubble. If I was building something in, you know, good solid construction with dry lumber, I probably would try to get it closer than that. That's usually what I do. But one thing you have to remember with lumber and with even soil, just putting this on the soil here, is even when we get this really close, all of this green lumber actually doesn't always dry to the exact same thickness. So sometimes your green lumber will dry a little bit thinner, a little bit thicker, even though you'll cut them at the same thickness. And the reason is because there's different densities in the, you know, and how close the grain structure is. Sometimes a knot may have something to do with it. Like it's not always exactly perfect. So that in itself will get your stack off. So I just try to get it pretty dang close. I'll tell you that I actually stacked, I actually just set something up by eye one time, a stack, and got it pretty dang close to dry, pulled all the 2x4s off there, and everything was perfect. I didn't have any problems. The only thing that I focused on was making sure that it was flat, okay, in that stack. So anyway, that's just something to remember. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to go ahead and cut some pieces. I'm going to show you this right here. A lot of times we'll have these little cut-off pieces. I like to keep a scrap bucket around. We've got these little cut-off pieces. You can tell it was a piece of it's still got a live edge on there. We'll actually cut these down to 1/2 inch. Now I may get them down closer to where they'll fit in the table saw, but I'll just cut these down. They're all scrap anyway, and cut them down to 1/2 inch. And I went along with my level and with this and confirmed that 1/2 inch will actually work all the way across here. So we're going to go on ahead and get all of that cut, and then we'll be able to get level. All right, guys, it's all done. We got it finished. I think it turned out really, really nice. I went ahead and got these shims, and as y'all saw, we had before we were fairly close off level. We may be just a little bit more, but you remember our 1/2 inch was down here. So that's the nice thing is when you raise this up, like I said before, that changes your angle just a little bit. So you can push that 1/2 inch one up into here. So what I did was I pushed the 1/2 inch one up here, and then I went and adjusted my my saw just a little bit, my table saw, and cut other shims slightly thicker. I did that all the way across, and got all of these shimmed off in the front and in the back, and these are all very, very sturdy. So one thing you want to make sure you do when you're shimming like this, you want to check your other shim. So you put this shim in and you created level. So when you put this back shim in, you want to make sure that you don't push it off of level. So you check this shim and ensure that this one's still tight when you're putting in other shims like that. So that turns out pretty good. But anyway, guys, I just wanted to show you all this. This is a really, really fast way in my mind to do this. This did not take me very long at all. I've tried other methods of doing it. To me, this is just very fast, very easy. And I think what really does it is putting on these really thick logs that's just going to help hold their trueness. And I think even if a person made that slightly out of true, the weight would start to push down on it, and maybe even re-true itself up just a little bit. The fact that you've got them really big logs is just going to help a lot. Now, like I said, you're still going to have to make sure you're not twisted. That's something you're always going to have to contend with. But I really think this is a really awesome, fast way to do this. And I'm using stuff that I'm really not having to, I mean, I would have thrown those pieces away. They had so many knots in them, all of those shorter pieces that are running that way. And then these pieces, I could use them. I can get a few 2x4s, probably 3 2x6s, something like that. And I still may later on. It's not like I'm throwing them away. They still may end up being okay. Now they're kind of close to the ground, but they may be okay. And so later on down the road, when I'm not storing as much wood as I am right now, I may pull those up and I may cut them up into 2x6s, you know. Right now, guys, we've got a lot of wood, stacks and stacks of logs, and then we've still got more. We had a big storm earlier this year, and it just all kinds of trees got knocked over, and they were all going to the landfill. So happy we were able to save that, and we're going to be able to use that lumber. But anyway, guys, I just wanted to show you all this, show you all how to do this. Hope y'all enjoyed the video, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe.